Imagine you're Disney. You just spent $250 million making your biggest superhero movie ever. The trailers are everywhere. The actors are doing late night interviews. The red carpet premiere is set for tonight. But one country, just one, can still decide whether your movie becomes $1 billion hit or loses hundreds of millions. Sounds impossible? Like a crazy movie plot? Well, for almost 20 years, that is exactly how Hollywood worked. But here's the thing. Hollywood chose to pursue the Chinese market because of its enormous business potential. Once studios decided that market was important, many adjusted their films to improve their chances of being released there. It was the biggest gamble in movie history, and for a while, it worked. Until the story took a turn nobody expected. To understand this story, we have to ask a simple question. Why would Hollywood care so much about one single country? The answer comes down to a brutal reality. Making movies became insanely expensive. Think about it like this. If a studio spends a production budget of $200 million just to build the movie, the CGI, the explosions, the superstar actors, they then have to spend a marketing budget of another $150 million just to get you to buy a ticket. That means before a single person sits down with their popcorn, the studio is already $350 million in the hole. To make a profit, the money you actually get to keep, the total revenue or total money coming in, has to be absolutely massive. For decades, studios made most of their money at the domestic box office, the US and Canada. But suddenly, America wasn't enough to pay those massive bills. They needed the international box office, the rest of the world, to save them. And right around 2005, Hollywood looked across the Pacific Ocean and saw a gold mine. Let's look at the numbers because they are honestly ridiculous. In 2005, the entire country of China had roughly 2,000 movie screens. But cut to 2016, that number skyrocketed to over 40,000 screens. Within just a few more years, it became the largest cinema market on the planet. Suddenly, you had over 1 billion people who wanted to go to the movies on Friday night. Hollywood executives didn't see a different culture. They saw dollar signs. They realized that if they could capture this new audience, they wouldn't just make their money back, they would make history. But here's the catch. You couldn't just ship your movie to China and expect it to play in theaters. China's government had a totally different system for foreign films. They used a strict import quota. Think about it like this. Imagine Disneyland suddenly announces, starting today, only a tiny handful of foreign guests are allowed into the theme park each year. Everyone else? Go home. That's basically how Hollywood looked at China. Under their revenue sharing system, only a strictly limited number of foreign blockbusters were allowed into Chinese theaters each year. Because space was so limited, getting one of those coveted golden tickets was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. If your movie got picked, you hit the jackpot. If it didn't, you were locked out of the biggest growth market in the world. So, Hollywood didn't complain. Instead, they started asking, what do we need to do to get inside the park? This is where the business decisions get wild. Remember, Hollywood wasn't acting by accident. They adjusted their movies because they chased the biggest opportunity they could find. Studios began looking at their scripts and asking, will this fly overseas? And the changes they made were everywhere. Take Iron Man 3. If you watched it in America, you saw the standard movie. But Hollywood made a special version just for China, adding unique scenes with famous Chinese actors and product placement for local milk brands. In Transformers: Age of Extinction, Hollywood moved the entire final battle to Hong Kong and loaded the film with local landmarks. To bypass the strict foreign quota completely, studios started doing co-productions. Universal teamed up with China Film Group for The Great Wall. DreamWorks partnered with Oriental DreamWorks to make Kung Fu Panda 3. Paramount worked with China Movie Channel on Transformers: Age of Extinction. Marvel collaborated with DMG Entertainment on Iron Man 3. And later, Paramount joined hands with Alibaba Pictures for Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation. Think of this like a joint business venture. Co-productions could qualify as domestic productions, making it much easier to access Chinese theaters than standard foreign imports. It was a clever way to guarantee their films like The Meg or The Great Wall got in front of audiences. But it wasn't just about what Hollywood added. It was about what they took away. In World War Z, a line about where the zombie virus started was changed. In Doctor Strange, a major character's background was rewritten. Even the action movie Red Dawn had an entire army digitally changed in post-production using computers, replacing one country's flags with another's just to protect the movie's financial future. From Gravity to Looper, Hollywood adjusted, tweaked, and edited. They believed they had found the ultimate formula. For years, Hollywood felt completely invincible. They genuinely believed they had cracked the ultimate code to the movie business. Because they had this global safety net, studios started greenlighting bigger and bigger budgets. A $250 million price tag didn't seem scary anymore. If a movie came out in America and totally flopped, the executives didn't panic. They just looked across the ocean and waited for the global box office to save the day. Think about it like this. Imagine you're playing a video game where you have an infinite supply of extra lives. You're going to play way more aggressively, right? You'll take massive risks because you assume you can't really lose. That was Hollywood. Executives were incredibly confident that this strategy would keep working for decades. But every successful business strategy in history usually has one dangerous flaw: the assumption that nothing will ever change. Except, it did. Around 2018, the audience started noticing the cracks in the formula. Some critics and movie fans started asking, wait, why did the movie suddenly freeze for a 10-minute commercial in another country? But here's the strange part. Audiences overseas were getting tired of it too. They could tell when a Hollywood studio was just inserting a random scene or a quick celebrity cameo just to check a box. It felt forced, it felt corporate, and then something happened that almost nobody saw coming. China's own movie industry grew up. Think about it like this. Imagine you love buying imported candy from a famous store across the ocean. It's the only place that makes giant, colorful chocolate bars. But while you're waiting for the next shipment, a brand new candy shop opens right on your street. They start making candy with the exact same high-quality ingredients, but they mix in your favorite local flavors, stuff the imported shop doesn't understand. Suddenly, you don't care about the imported candy anymore. That is exactly what happened to the movie business. Local studios started pouring massive amounts of money into filmmaking, and audiences responded. Chinese films began dominating their own box office, often outperforming Hollywood releases. Their visual effects, their production quality, and their storytelling improved dramatically. More importantly, local audiences naturally wanted to see stories that reflected their own culture, history, and real-world experiences. Suddenly, local films became absolute juggernauts. A sci-fi epic called The Wandering Earth showed the world that local filmmakers could do space travel special effects just as well as Hollywood. Another massive action drama, The Battle at Lake Changjin, smashed box office records by giving audiences an intense, historical spectacle on a scale rarely seen before. They didn't need Hollywood to give them big-budget thrills anymore. They had them right at home. The strategy that had worked for years suddenly stopped looking so reliable. When big American movies started returning to theaters, the results were no longer predictable. Disney's live-action Mulan failed to become the global phenomenon many expected. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings never even received a mainland China release. Hollywood could no longer just snap its fingers and assume a movie would be a massive hit overseas. And maybe that's the biggest irony of this entire story. Hollywood spent nearly 20 years learning how to build movies for one of the world's fastest growing audiences. But by the time they believed they had finally figured it out, that audience had already changed. So, what did the world's biggest movie studios learn from all of this? They learned that there is no such thing as a permanent cheat code in the entertainment business. Hollywood chased the biggest opportunity it could find, but they realized that no single market can guarantee success forever. Today, the strategy has completely shifted again. Studios are focusing on making movies that work for a genuinely broad, global audience while keeping budgets under control. They are focusing on streaming, building diverse franchises, and realizing that profitability means making a great movie first, rather than trying to please a specific checklist. Maybe the biggest lesson from this entire era wasn't about a specific country at all. it was about Hollywood itself. Movie studios have always chased audiences wherever the money goes. In the 1950s, when television arrived, Hollywood changed everything to fight it. In the 1980s, it was the invention of the VHS tape. In the 2010s, it was the explosion of the global theater market. Today, it's streaming platforms. Tomorrow, maybe it's AI, maybe it's India, maybe it's something nobody sees coming yet. Because if the history of film has taught us anything, it's that movies don't just follow pure creativity, they follow the audience. Thanks for watching Blue Dog. Subscribe for more cinema breakdowns, filmmaking insights, and stories from behind the scenes. See you soon.